What is up, everybody? We're back here at King Film Sports for the NFL 2025 playoff predictions here. After a scintillating 272-game regular season, we are down to the final 14 teams, and in the next and final 13 games, we will be crowning the Super Bowl 59 champion here in New Orleans in about a month. I will be going through all of these games through the AFC and NFC, predicting all of the winners, and then crowning my Super Bowl 59 champion. Let me know your guys' Super Bowl picks in the comments down below, and I will be having my wild card betting locks and game picks video coming out later today, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But we started out here in the AFC. Chargers, Texans, great game on Saturday afternoon. Spread is only 3 in this matchup, and I know that it might be square. Probably everyone is taking this Chargers team, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. Give me this Chargers team to win in Houston. I know that this was the exact scenario last year. Texans were underdogs at home, facing the Browns and Joe Flacco, and then CJ Stroud in that offense played great. Flacco had a couple pick sixes. Texans won by 30. But in this one, I think the dynamic's completely different. CJ Stroud and that offense last year were picking up steam, catching fire near the playoffs. This year, they're limping into the finish line. No weapons on the outside other than Nico Collins here. They played their players today against Tennessee and scored a touchdown on the first drive, but they really needed that after the lackluster performances for the past month before that. So I think that Joe Mixon's going to have a great game. And against this Chargers talented front seven, I just think that they will get stopped on the ground. CJ Stroud will have probably 300 through the air if they want to have a chance, maybe a couple fluky turnovers. But in the end, I think that Herbert and this coaching staff will do well in this game, and I think that J.K. Dobbins especially will be the X factor on the ground. I think he'll rush for over 100. Give me the Chargers to win that game, and I really like their value from a futures perspective. They're currently sitting at 15-1 to win the AFC, currently plus 1,500 if you line shop out there. I really love that value because I think this is a favorable draw for them, so give me them to advance out of the first round. Then we get to the AFC North matchup, and if you told us we were getting this a month ago between the Ravens and Steelers, probably would have thought that Pittsburgh was hosting this as they started out 10-3 and thought it would have been a great matchup. Pittsburgh won the first one between these two at home, but now looking really bad. Spread is anywhere between 9 and 10 for this game. Give me the Ravens to advance. I just think that they are the thoroughly better team right now. Lamar probably not going to win the MVP, but a spectacular season. Derrick Henry doing great as well on the ground. I think he'll rush for a couple touchdowns in this matchup. And really, the game script for the Steelers that wins them this game is for the Baltimore Ravens to score less than 20 points in this matchup. I mean, we've seen Lamar and this Ravens team choke in the past, but this one would be disgusting. I mean, this Steelers offense just has been horrible. That game against Cincinnati at home, they were able to do nothing. It's going to rely on a couple fluky plays and probably a couple big special teams plays. Probably a fake punt or some trickery will come out for this Pittsburgh team, but I do not think it will be enough there. So even in this hard-fought game in Baltimore, give me the Ravens to win easily against the Steelers there in the rivalry matchup. Then we get to the Broncos and the Bills, 2-7 matchup here. Bo Nix, rookie, going onto the road into the inclement weather to face this Bills team, and give me Buffalo to advance here. I do think that Sean Payton will cook up a great game plan against a Bills defense that I think is pretty overrated at this point. They are getting healthier, but I do think that the Broncos can move the ball, put up some points, but ultimately, Bo Nix against a very tough team in tough conditions. I'm just not sure how he's going to fare there. And then I think that Josh Allen and James Cook will be able to move the ball very well against this Broncos team. So maybe kind of a shootout in that matchup, but I think in the fourth quarter won't really be in doubt. So give me the Bills to win over the Broncos there and advance. Then they'll take on Baltimore in round 2. So that brings us to the Chargers and the Chiefs, and an AFC divisional battle in the divisional round here. Kansas City won't have really played a game for a while, 24 days off as they got smoked by the Broncos today, but really didn't try in that game. Everyone was really resting. And I think that the Chargers match up very well against the Chiefs. I know that they've lost 7 straight to this Kansas City team, but these matchups have all been close. We remember earlier this season when they played in SoFi about week 4, that was the game that Rashee Rice tore his ACL. Chargers were up 10-0 early. It was a very ugly game for the Chiefs, and Herbert and that offense really couldn't do anything because Herbert sprained his ankle, so wasn't really moving around, and they were dealing with some other injuries. Chiefs only won by 7. And then we remember the one on Sunday night later on in the season where the Chiefs had them dead in the water, 13-0, and then the Chargers score a couple touchdowns, take a lead late, and then in classic Chiefs fashion, move the ball down the field, and then Matthew Wright hits the game winner, doinks it in off the upright. So my point there is that these teams always play these close games. Chiefs always seem to win, so from a spread perspective, probably look at the Chargers if they're getting 4 or 5 points in this matchup. I really could see the Chargers winning here because they do match up well, but after all, it's Mahomes at home in the playoffs, so once again, I love the value on the Chargers to win the AFC, but I cannot predict them to win outright against this Chiefs team, but probably would pick them against the spread in this matchup. Think there's a lot of value, but narrowly give me the Chiefs there at home. Then we get to the Ravens and the Bills. This one's going to be a spectacular game between the two MVP frontrunners, and give me the Ravens in a slight upset here. I do think that the spread will probably be a pick 'em, if not Bills -1 here. for the home field, but I think that the Ravens are the slightly better team. And remember, in I think either week 3 or week 4 on Sunday Night Football, when Josh Allen and this Bills team went into Baltimore this season and they got smoked on primetime. That was the only game this season where the Bills really looked bad. Their defense was getting diced by Derrick Henry and Lamar through the air, and then Josh Allen just really couldn't do much against this Ravens defense, who was worse at that point. I think that they've been picking up steam. I think that they will be able to stop James Cook and Josh Allen on the ground. I think that Allen will have to have one of his signature days through the air, and it's going to be a cold one there. I'm not sure how much they can rely on that. Allen, yes, he's been great in the playoffs so far throughout his career, but I just think that this is the Ravens' time. I think that they're peaking, and I do think that they get a slight upset on the road there. Obviously, it could go either way, and I'm very thrilled for that matchup if we do get it in the second round, but I will take the Ravens to advance. And then we get the AFC Championship rematch of the first game of the season on that Thursday night. Isaiah Likely, his toe was out of bounds. If not, Ravens could have won that ball game. And in this one, I will take the Ravens to win this game. Once again, I had them winning last year against this Chiefs team, obviously in the AFC Championship, and Patrick Mahomes proved us wrong. And call me a sucker, I'm doing it once again, picking against this Chiefs team, but I really do think that this Chiefs team has been walking on eggshells, avoiding disaster all year within these close games. I think it's finally going to catch up to them against a team that's more talented, that's playing better, and Lamar, yes, has choked throughout his playoff career. And I think that really last year, the name of the game was the play calling. They really avoided the run game, and I think they will pound the rock, especially I think with Derrick Henry this year and Lamar Jackson in the read option game. I think that he'll get 10 to 15 carries himself, if not a couple rush touchdowns. So I think that they'll be very dangerous within the red zone. I know this Chiefs defense has been very good, but I think that the Chiefs offense hasn't been great. It's going to take a great day from Patrick Mahomes. Of course, he could do it. I see it being close as well late in the game. Hopefully, Justin Tucker hits a couple kicks for them because he has not been on his game this year, but we will see there. I do think that the Ravens will win this game. Do not be shocked if the Ravens beat the Bills. I projected a Bills -1 point spread there. If the Ravens are actually favored in this game, it would be around a pick 'em. Chiefs may be favored by 1, but I'd probably say Ravens favored by 1 in that matchup, even in Arrowhead, and give me Baltimore to get the victory. I think that Lamar and this team rise up to the occasion in that one and take revenge. Then we get to the NFC here, and I think that this is very much wide open. As we see in the AFC, probably it's a 3-horse race according to all the odds between the Chiefs with the number 1 seed and then the Bills and the Ravens. Maybe some people are saying like me that the Chargers have a chance and are good value at 15-1. But in the NFC, yes, the Lions finished 15-2, have been the best team all year and have the bye in home field. But I could really see any of these teams going on a run, especially considering how many injuries there are on that Detroit defense. So we started out here in the 5-4 matchup. Vikings brutal, could have had the road to the Super Bowl through Minnesota in US Bank Stadium in the Dome, but now going on the road to SoFi, a place that they lost on a Thursday night earlier this season. They'll have some more time to prepare as this one's on the Monday night, and I do think that they will bounce back. Give me Minnesota to win this game. Yes, I know that they looked really bad on Sunday night, but I think that they should have been winning that game, potentially by 2 possessions in that first half. There was just brutal luck in the red zone. Sam Darnold was not himself, and maybe some people are saying that he's beginning to be exposed, and this Rams defense, the young players in the front 7 will get pressure. I don't believe it. I think they'll be able to establish the run game with Aaron Jones on the ground. Justin Jefferson was not good in that matchup, and I think that the Rams secondary has been really porous throughout the season. You really saw it in that Bills game and a couple others. So I think that Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, TJ Hawkinson, these guys will all have great games, and Justin Jefferson probably 100 and a couple touchdowns as well. And I know that the Rams will be a trendy upset pick. They're only 2.5-point dogs. They already beat this Vikings team. We all know. But I just think that this Rams team, after they started out 1-4, they went on a big winning streak. Ended up at 10-6 before this last week, resting their players. But a lot of those games were a lot closer than you'd like. And Puka Nacua, yes, a great weapon outside, but Cooper Kupp has been relatively non-existent these past few weeks. Other than him, it's Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Higbee. Kyron's obviously been great in the ground game, but I'm not sure they'll be able to run it against this Vikings team. And Stafford looking a little bit older, so maybe they can get back to their ways. But I think that the Rams team that stuck into the playoffs and played Detroit great in last year's postseason is much better than this team here. And I think that McVay, ultimately too conservative in resting his players in that Seattle game. They almost ended up winning with Jimmy G, but I think that the 3 seed would have served them much better to play the Commanders at home and get that 3 seed if they beat Seattle. So ultimately, I think that they will pay for that. maybe an interesting game here, but I'm going to trust Sam Darnold on the road against Super Bowl champion Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford there. I think that would be a great game on Monday night. Then we get to the Commanders Bucks. Not a lot to say here. I think that these are probably the two weakest teams in the NFC field, but either of them could go on a run. Give me Tampa to win here at home. No result here would really shock me, but Baker, really a seasoned vet at this point in the playoffs. We saw that win when he was with the Cleveland Browns, and then he played well in that game against Philadelphia last year, and then they gave Detroit a run for their money last year in the playoffs as well. So I just think that this Bucs team at home, they struggled today against New Orleans. I think they'll get off to a much better start. And the Commanders, I think, throughout the second half of the season, yes, they have won some of these games, but in pretty close fashion. For instance, the Eagles game and then the Falcons game on Sunday night, and then even this Cowboys game that they had today, where they really needed to win that game to secure this 6th seed. They did not look great against Trey Lance in Dallas. So I don't know what's really going on with this Commanders team. Jaden Daniels, yes, he's very good, but we know about rookies in the playoffs, and I think that this Tampa Bay defense will rise to the occasion at home here. That crowd was raucous today in a close game against New Orleans, so I can only imagine what they'll be on Sunday night this next week here. So give me the Bucs to win, but I could see a shootout game where the Commanders go on top there. Then finally, we get to the Packers and the Eagles. I think this will be a great game. I do expect Jordan Love to play. I think that the Packers were probably being very conservative in this one. Malik Willis is a competent backup, but I really do expect Jordan Love to play. This might be the 3rd or 4th time he's dealt with injury this season, so he's no stranger to it. And I don't love that going against this very talented and ferocious Eagles front seven. But I do think that this Packers team, other than that, matches up very well. And coming off of the bounce back after a tough loss to this Bears team, I think that they will be very dangerous. I think that Matt LaFleur was probably scheming for this Eagles game that whole week in preparation against Chicago. I think that he will be in his bag against this Philadelphia team. I think that this is a coaching mismatch between him and Sirianni and the Packers coordinators versus the Eagles coordinators in this one. Obviously, we know that they lost in Sao Paulo in week 1 in Brazil. That was a very fluky game where there wasn't much defense played in the cold elements here. I think that the Packers defense has been playing much better. I think that they'll get some key stops. Remember, we haven't seen Jalen Hurts play in a few weeks here since that injury against the Commanders. So I do think that he'll be a bit rusty there. And if they can't establish the run game early on, if they get out to an early deficit because Saquon is struggling in the ground game, it might be very tough for them here. So I see a lot of uncertainty in this matchup. I know that the Packers are underdogs by 5 points, but give me Green Bay in a big upset, and then they will advance to play Detroit in round 2. I really just see a lot of volatility in that matchup, as we don't really know between both quarterbacks. Everyone just assumes that they will both play. You never know, but I do think that Jordan Love will be better than Jalen Hurts in this matchup, so give me them there. Then we get to the next round where we have this Packers team going to Detroit. And obviously, we know that this Packers team got swept by the Lions earlier this season. And I think that the Packers would be a great play, especially against the spread, if they are getting, 3.5 or 4 points. I think that this one could come down to the wire, especially with this Detroit defense. But we'll monitor the injuries over the bye. Maybe they get more healthy in that matchup. I think that in a straw poll, probably a majority of people would say that Jordan Love's the better quarterback over Jared Goff. But I ultimately think that Lions offense just would be too much for this Packers defense, especially in the dome in that matchup. Very tough to beat a team for a third time, but I just think that the Lions have too much horsepower in that matchup. Packers coming off a big upset in Philadelphia the prior week. It would be a great matchup, but I just think that the Lions would win narrowly in a shootout there. Then we get to the Vikings and the Bucks. This would be a very interesting game because the Bucks are at home here. Would be interested to see for a point spread. Vikings would probably be favored in that matchup. Give me the Vikings to win. I think that going to Los Angeles would be a very similar game. Then going to Tampa, not the easiest to pull off back-to-back road wins in the NFL playoffs, but I just think that Sam Darnold, if he's able to do it against this Los Angeles Rams defense, he'll probably be able to do it against this Tampa Bay defense. I think that they'd be able to run the ball all over them. And then I think Baker Mayfield against this Brian Flores defense, somewhat cause for concern there. And then ultimately Todd Bowles as the leader of this Buccaneers team against Kevin O'Connell. Bit of a coaching mismatch from that perspective there. Will be just very interesting if we do see this matchup because Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield were both on the Panthers at one point in time for that 2021 or 2022 season, and they were both in the same draft class, top 3 picks there. So very interesting matchup in Tampa, and I think it could go either way, but Minnesota been the better team for most of the season, and I think are playing better right now and more talented. So give me the Vikings there. I think that the wide receivers would go off in that matchup. And that brings us to the NFC Championship, where we once again see the third game between these NFC North teams. Lions this time facing the Vikings, and the first time these two teams played in Minnesota, very close. Should have been very close, I would argue, on Sunday Night Football, but Vikings, some huge miscues leads to their demise there. I would take the Lions to win this matchup, though I do think, again, it would be very close. Tough to beat a team for a third time here, but I think that the Lions just showed that they have more horses, especially on that offense with Jahmyr Gibbs. As I mentioned, I think they get more healthy at this point, and Minnesota at this point also going on the road to the Rams on that Monday night, then playing at Tampa, third straight week at Detroit. This would be a very tough road trip for them. So I ultimately do think that the fatigue catches up to them and the Lions would get a huge victory to punch their ticket to their first Super Bowl. And then they would face the Ravens. I would take the Ravens to win this matchup. I just think that they are more talented. It will be interesting to see a point spread because I think that Vegas would say probably Lions -1 or pick them in a matchup against the Ravens. But I think if it were to actually take place, the Ravens would be favored in that matchup, having taken down the Bills and then winning in Kansas City as well. But I do think that the Ravens will win this one. I also like their Super Bowl future at +650 if you are able to shop around for that. I think that's great value, as I think even though their path is very tough, facing the Pittsburgh team at home and then going to Buffalo, to Kansas City, and then facing a tough team like Detroit in the Super Bowl, I just think that Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and especially the defense with Brandon Orr will deliver them glory in the Super Bowl. Seems like destiny for them to win it. They won it in 2000, then in 2012, then 12 years later now in 2024 there. Would obviously be very cool if the Detroit Lions or another one of these NFC teams won a Super Bowl for the first time. So with that being said, be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of my predictions. I have a feeling they're going to be very controversial here. So let me know in the comments down below. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.